Sometimes in life, you meet this friend who was really boring in school, and sure, they have some new anecdotes that they want to share. So you're kind of pleasantly surprised that they're interesting now, but at the end of the day, it's still a pretty dull affair. That is what this show feels like. Hi, I'm Pratiksha Mishra, and you're listening to my review of Indian Police Force. One thing about director Rohit Shetty is that in his cop universe, his cops are not just people, they're superheroes. In the sense that there is a good versus evil fight that's going on, and good always has to win, and that's where the cops are situated. Even in this show, that's true. It is still very much cop propaganda where they can do no wrong. Absolutely nothing that they do is even slightly in the gray area. Even things that are clearly a little bit dicey, like it's pretty clearly police brutality, are just overshadowed by the fact that they're brave and there's so much bravado. The difference in this show, however, is that there is not one character who we see as the main cop, like say Singham or Simba. In this, it's about the entire police force and also kind of in connection their families. Sure, this is what their work is like and this is how their families are also affected, is what the show is trying to do. ये in a sense is kind of an attempt कि जो कॉप्स हैं हमारे शो में उनको थोड़ा सा बैक स्टोरी देने का, बट जस्ट द कैरेक्टराइजेशन इज सो वेफर थिन एंड जस्ट इवन द बैक स्टोरीज आर सो already seen that it does not have the necessary effect. That is probably the reason why most of the performances in the show feel very one tone, even though these are actors who could have portrayed these roles very, very well. The main three cops that we find in this universe are played by Sidharth Malhotra, Shilpa Shetty and Vivek Oberoi. All three of them perform very, very well जब action चल रहा होता है, जब मार धाड़ मतलब खून खराबा चल रहा है, they do very, very well. Also, there's just this fluidity that comes into both Malhotra and Shetty's acting that really lends itself to these action sequences. But action sequences से हट के, when we have the softer moments of humanity or just relationships between people, उसमें there's just not enough to be invested in. Even the dialogue writing is just not serious enough for you to actually feel something. And most of their backstories are pretty sad. So you'd want to find out more. You'd want to know, oh, how did that affect them? Or, oh, what is this character not telling us? But इतना intrigue build ही नहीं हो पाता है. This show feels like a film that has been stretched out for 7 episodes, and I have a reason for feeling that. दो टाइप के शोज होते हैं, एक होता है शो दैट यू विल वॉच आराम से लीजरली, अनदर वन दैट इज क्रिएटेड टू बिंज. एंड इन दिस कंटेंट यूनिवर्स दैट वी हैव, बिंजिंग इज समथिंग वी डू वेरी ऑफन. दिस शो हाउएवर फील्स लाइक it's assuming that people are going to binge it or they're going to watch it in one setting. इसलिए जो भी cliffhangers episodes के end में आते हैं, they're not really anything interesting. It's not something like, oh, if I watch a cliffhanger and I go away from the show, I'd still be thinking about it or want to come back to it. There's an assumption that ठीक है ये cliffhanger, it's a little detail into the next episode and you're just going to tune into the next episode right then and there. Indian Police Force opens with a series of bomb blasts happening across Delhi, and at the helm of this investigation is DSP Kabir Malik, played by Sidharth Malhotra. In this show, there is a very clear binary of the good Muslim and bad Muslim, and he is on the first side. And in this, we see, sure, in the show, there is an effort to kind of have that conversation of the difference between religion and extremism, but वो binary ही लपेटते रहते हैं. There's the same talking points over and over again. It does not have the nuance or the complexity necessary to discuss this. I was thinking about Hansal Mehta's Faraz that came out last year, a brilliant film and one that kind of explores this topic very, very well. That's how nuance is done, that's how complexity is done, and that just does not happen here. But compared to what we've seen previously in this genre and even in the cop universe, this is a lot of growth. Kabir and the people who are helping him, including one senior who we'll come back to, is facing radicalized youth, and their leader in this mission is again the bad Muslim stereotype played by Mayank Tandon, and his name is Zarar. Zarar की backstory हमें जरा सी देखने को मिलती है, but again it's too superficial, it's too just the layers are just not there for you to actually understand what's going on. And even then, since they're relying so heavily on this binary, they don't bother to look into it a lot either. Again, with performances, Mayank Tandon's performance also feels woefully one tone. So even if you're willing to invest yourself in this backstory and want to think and wonder just anything about what they're trying to tell you, it just does not happen because you don't care. The only performance that stood out to me in this show was Sakshi Tanwar, who plays Vivek Oberoi's character's wife. She plays a woman who's dealing with just conflicting feelings of pride and grief, and that act is very, very well done. Other than mourning wives and also a dead one, there is one major female character in this show, and that is Tara Shetty, the Gujarat ATS chief, played by Shilpa Shetty. मुझे उनका entry sequence बहुत ही पसंद आया. I love that kind of slow-mo entry shot. I think when I was reviewing Nikamma, I had said that I wanted to see Shilpa Shetty in a more action-oriented role, and finally I have received it in this show, and boy was it worth it. Shilpa Shetty as Tara Shetty is amazing in every action sequence. Just the fluidity, like I said, in motion in the scenes are wonderful. This show is just further proof that she deserves an action vehicle of her own, and hers is one of those performances in the show also which was a little more layered than others. Even Sidharth Malhotra, who has played a man in uniform before, comes across a little stiff here. I think that's all his character has, just these same dialogues that he has to repeat and these action sequences that he has to go through. So the charm that he had in his previous films is very much missing here, and I hated that because I do like him as an actor. Also wish we got to see a little bit more Vivek Oberoi. उनके character को ज़्यादा develop होने का chance मिला ही नहीं. He just was the moral compass for a while, and then that just kind of went away. And the show needed one. Trust me, the show needed a bit of a moral compass. The camera work by Girish Kant and Raza Hussain Mehta is one of my favorite things about this show. You might hate it because it is a lot of drone shots. There are so many drone shots, but I love a good drone shot. It's just the camera work gives the show a kind of scale that it otherwise would not have had. It almost feels international, and I love that about this show. And the action, like I said, is a pretty decent part about this show, and it helps that the camera work perfectly complements it. जो editing है, which otherwise feels too choppy and fast-paced, works in the action sequences very well. The background music, so hammy, so extra, absolutely unnecessary in some parts. That neenu background music made me want to cry. Like I had to take a break and breathe a little because I didn't need this much stimulation from this show. Another thing that I really didn't like about this show is that some of the scenes were so saturated that there was just a color explosion in front of my eyes, and it felt like the characters were placed there, like they are in a Lego set or something. And a lot of these scenes were actually very emotional, and I just lost the emotionalness of it because I was just staring at the screen and thinking, why is this so bright? And when we talk of complexity, the villains are not menacing enough. They don't get enough just in their characters for us, first of all, to feel even a little afraid. Sure, the consequences of their actions are terrifying, but the villains in themselves feel just very childish and get so easily caught. Also, the cops in this universe are fighting hundreds of people, something that does happen, sure, in the action genre, but यहाँ पे since there's not much else to support the film, it comes off a little gimmicky. I also hate the fact that covert mission means nothing. It means absolutely nothing. They say it's going to be a covert mission, and then they are driving through the Indo-Bangladesh border. It's fine. Perhaps we are expecting too much sense from this. All of this has been done to death, and that's why it practically comes off a little boring, other times a lot jarring. And that is why my rating for Indian Police Force is 2 stars out of 5.